Good evening. Welcome to DVT TV. My name is Lisa Lane, and I am an 18-time blood clot survivor. I'm also a nurse. I'm a healthcare advocate. I'm a thromboambassador for states Tennessee and Georgia through the National Blood Clot Alliance. And I felt it so necessary that a survivor come on and talk about the things that we go through daily in our lives, but then also our advocacy work, reviewing products that we use, a physician's perspective, legislators' perspective. So I thought, this is the perfect opportunity to start this channel, to get a survivor. And whether you are a caregiver, you're a survivor, you're just someone who wants knowledge in this, if maybe you could be a healthcare professional, but hearing it from the perspective of a survivor and an advocate maybe could help some people. Couple stats that I'm going to give you before this video. Every 6 minutes in the United States, someone dies from a blood clot or blood clot related illness. People on chemotherapy and cancer treatment, people in the hospital, women starting a new estrogen product or pregnancy, up to weeks after pregnancy, are some of those that are highest at risk. But no one is safe. It doesn't matter your socioeconomic background. It doesn't matter your race. It doesn't matter your education. It does not matter what religion. It does not matter if you're an athlete or if you're sedentary. We are all sitting ducks against this disorder, this condition. And while some of us have genetic factors that play into this, through my travels, I've met many, many people that have no genetic reason for this at all. It just happens. The latest census, which was 22 years ago, states that every year, 100,000 people will die from a blood clot. And we speculate that that number is so much greater than that, which is why some states and some advocates are pushing for legislation to require maintenance and surveillance monitoring of blood clots, blood clot disorders, blood clot deaths. Tennessee is about to become one of those states. That was my big news. Big news is that I will be going to Nashville on April 4th to meet with a state legislator to get my bill, which is named after my grandfather Lane's Law, made into law in Tennessee so that we will monitor and provide surveillance on blood clot diagnosis, blood clot treatment, and most importantly, blood clot death. Because it has to stop. It has to stop. Now, many of you have seen on my social media channels that I work alongside with the National Blood Clot Alliance. This is a group of people that are mostly patients. We are patient-led. In fact, our saying is, we know the patient because we are the patient. And these people have become so special to me. Because one of the things that I've found with this diagnosis, that it is so important that you realize that you are not alone. You are not alone. And through this networking, we now have thromboambassadors, which are ambassadors for blood clots, in all 50 states, which is incredible. So if you hear me mention couple acronyms. DVT means blood clot. VTE means a blood clot related disorder. It could be in the brain, it could be in the leg, it could be a saddle, anything. And then also, if I mention the NBCA, that is the National Blood Clot Alliance. I urge you, if you need additional, and I'll put it in the description below, if you need additional information, check out their website, www.stoptheclot.org. All right, so let's get to it. The name of this video is called How. And I think it's so important that we don't dwell on the past, but that we use the past to help the future. We can't know where we're going if we don't know where we've been. So tonight I'm going to share my story with all of you in hopes that it will help someone, that it will inspire someone, that it will educate someone, so that somebody doesn't have to go through the same thing. I grew up a native Knoxvillian, born in Knoxville, Tennessee. Later, around my middle school age, I moved to Northeast Tennessee, a little town called Irwin. And I was very, very grateful and thankful looking back to grow up in such a small place that everybody knew everyone. You know, you grew up with friends that you still talk to. You still have support from so many of these people. You stay in touch with so many of these people. And in a lot of ways, growing up in Irwin shaped who I am today. Some of my best memories are from my childhood growing up in a small town. When I was 6, my parents got my sister and I started in athletics. We started t-ball, we started basketball, anything that swimming. We both knew how to swim by age 2. And we both had a knack for that. We both found a passion in athletics. And I played middle school basketball. I played high school basketball. And then I went on and played 4 years under scholarship at Lees-McRae College. So I was an athlete. Anybody out there that's ever been a college athlete or a high school athlete knows that you devote your entire life to that. It is the hardest job you'll ever have. And that everything you do revolves around that sport. And that's okay, because that's why you're there. I graduated when I was 23. And at 25, I was expecting my first child. My family was so excited. I was so excited. We were all just ecstatic. I bought all the books. I did all the things right. I went to every appointment. I ate what you're supposed to eat. I didn't eat what you weren't supposed to eat. I didn't drink diet soda. That was a myth that I heard. You know, I did it all. I did it all. I bought every book that I could find. Every weekend, we would go to McKay's and I would buy all these books on pregnancy and what to do and what to wear and what to expect and how to do the nursery. And I was so excited. And I am one of these people that probably would have had 10 children had it been up to me. And I discovered that I was pregnant in March of 2006. That's my cat back there. Sorry. He has to be part of the video. I just can't keep him away. That's Skeeter. But in in August of 2006, I left work that Friday, and it felt like I was dragging my leg, like I had a cinder block attached to it. There was no real pain at that point. There was no real swelling. It just felt like it weighed 20 pounds more than the other one. It was kind of weird. And I thought, well, maybe that's just a weird pregnancy symptom that I haven't read about, that I don't know about. And over the weekend, it started turning color. It started turning really red and then purple. And it started to hurt. And when I talk about pain, this is a pain that I cannot describe. This is a pain that, looking back, compared to my first clot, childbirth was a breeze. Knee injury that I had in college, ankle injury that I had in college, having my face torn open playing basketball, none of that compared. Wasn't even on the same field. It was a pain that that you never get used to. I should say that. So on Monday, I went in, and my doctor was out of town. She specialized in high-risk pregnancy. She was exactly who I needed to see, and she ended up saving my life. But she wasn't there. So I was misdiagnosed the first time with sciatica. I was told to get a massage, knowing now if I'd gotten that massage, I probably would have died. It would have dislodged the clot and I would have died. But, I went in 2 days later as my kidneys had started to fail, and I was diagnosed with a kidney infection. My second misdiagnosis. My doctor was gone, moving her daughters into dorm because they were starting college. It was just a fluke thing. It was a freak thing. So I saw her on Friday. We've now been going a week. And she said, I need you to get to the hospital now. Within 30 minutes of getting there, I was diagnosed with a DVT that started in, without using too many medical terms, started about 6 inches above your groin, halfway to my knee. So it started in the inferior vena cava, and it ended up in the deep femoral vein of my left leg. It was a really big clot. And that was the day, August 4th, 2006, that my life changed. You see, if you know anyone that has had a clot, if you yourself have had a clot, you don't go back to the way that you were. There's no amount of exercise. There's no amount of strength training. There's no amount of self-help. There's no amount of counseling or mental health support that will take you back to the day before your diagnoses. You can get close, but you will never fully go back to the person you once were. I was in the hospital a long time, and the conversations began of, if you were to pass away, what do you want us to do about your son? We knew by that. Now, at that point, we knew he was a boy. We had to go every week and hold our breath and pray and beg and barter with God. Because the only time that I left the hospital or the house was once a week to get an ultrasound of my son. And in that ultrasound, it wasn't to look at his fingers or his toes. It was looking at one thing specifically, and that was his umbilical cord. And it was to see if a clot had formed there, or if part of my clot had broken off and landed in his umbilical cord. So every week from August 4th to November 20th, weekly, we went in to make sure that my child was still alive. And that is not an easy thing to do at all. So when people ask me, why do you advocate for this? You're fine. You're doing fine now. I am. But no one should ever have to go through that. And I fight and I advocate and I am so passionate about this cause because not one young mother deserves to have to go through that every week of her pregnancy. For any reason. So I started asking, how? How could this happen? I did everything right. I played college basketball. I was an athlete. I was in the best shape of anybody I knew. How could this happen? And that's why this video is called How. But how in the world could this have happened? Luckily, my son was born perfect. He was perfect. He was born 3 weeks early. He was 9 pounds, 8 ounces, and 23 inches long. He is now 17 and 6'4". So smart. And I love him more than anything in this world. Him and I have a bond that a lot of, I feel, maybe some people don't share with their children because I had to fight so hard to have him. I had to fight with everything that I had to get him here. But he made it. And laying in that hospital bed, because I did have to stay a long time after he was born, because they started me from injectable blood thinner. I had to inject 6 shots in my stomach daily from August to November. And then when I had him, they did what's called a bridge over to the pill form of blood thinner. So it took some time. And when I was in the hospital during that bridge, during that transition, that's when I decided that I'm going to learn everything that I can about this. And in January of 2007, I started nursing school. So after my son was born, I went to nursing school. I already had 2 degrees and was working on my master's and decided to go to nursing school. And the whole experience with my blood clot was the reason why. I did not know at the time that that was just the beginning of a very long road. Excuse me. So I'm going to try and summarize about 10 years here in about 15 minutes. But I was told about 6 months after the pregnancy that by a very well-known hospital that I will not name, I went and saw a wonderful hematologist who told me that this was pregnancy-induced. They did no blood work at all. But that this was pregnancy-induced. I could stop taking the pill form of the blood thinner I was on and go live my life. And I celebrated. Like, I mean, this was one of the best days, the best news of my life. You know, this is over. This is done. You know, I've beat it. And about 2 months later, I was back in the hospital with 2 DVTs. One in my thigh and one behind my knee, again in the left leg. So after that happened, my doctor sat me down and said, you have something called, I had 2 diagnoses. I had something called Factor V Leiden, which is I am missing one of, or there is a mutation of one of the clotting factors. So, little overview about this. When we get cut, we form a scab. Our body responds to this, and it makes a scab to keep us from bleeding out. People that do not scab very easily are known as hemophiliacs. That's another genetic disorder on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum are the thrombophiliacs, which are people that scab too much, that clot too much. Because really, what a blood clot is a scab on the inside of your body. Sometimes that's good, you know, if you have trauma to that area and you know, the bleeding needs to stop. So it's good that we have those things. But in those of us that have a genetic mutation, especially mine called Factor V Leiden, it does not know when to shut off. So when I became pregnant, the Factor V Leiden that I was born with activated, and it has never turned off. So I got back on the blood thinner. I was devastated about that. I was devastated because I thought I was done. Like, it's over, you know? This was just a bump in the road and it's over, but it wasn't. It wasn't over. And I continued to throw clot after clot after clot, all in my left leg at this point. All in my left leg. And then my family and I moved to Atlanta. And through my sister's father-in-law, he recommended, Lisa, you need to call this person at Emory University and you need to talk to him. Okay, I'll do anything. I'll do anything at this point because my life consisted of doctor's appointments, medications, INRs because I was on warfarin. And so I'd have to go in 1-2 times a week because my blood was so unstable. They take your blood, they test it for its thickness, and then they adjust your dose. That is warfarin treatment. And it's great for a lot of people. It was not great for me. And I found out after my first appointment with Dr. Alexander Duncan, who I hope watches this because he is my angel. He is now retired, but he is my angel. And without him and the amazing people at Emory University, I would not be sitting here talking to you. Not a doubt in my mind. But after my first appointment with Dr. Duncan, he brings me back in the office and he says, I've got it. Yes, you do have factor V, but you are warfarin resistant, which is a very, very rare thing that my body does not absorb warfarin. So for 6 years, it was like I was taking nothing with a clotting disorder. So that explained the repeat clots and clots and clots. And that's where I got the majority of my clots, was during that time. So I started a new medication. I was really scared to take it that first night, and I had to call my mom like 6 times, and she had to talk me into it. But I did it, and life improved. For a little while, it really improved, and you know, I thought this is just a thing of the past. Okay, finally we've beat it. You know, finally I'm over this hurdle. And several years into taking that medication, I developed 3 more blood clots in rapid succession. And I was one of, and I'm not going to name that medication, but I was one of the first documented failures in the United States for that medication. It was brand new. Why? You know, again, how could this happen? But I failed that medication. So I went back on shots for a little while, which aren't fun. I don't know if anybody's ever stuck themselves with anything, but it's not fun. Went back on shots for a little while, and then tried the newest of the blood thinners. Let me back up before I started the final blood thinner. In July of 2021, I was doing a Facebook Live, and I was doing my thing, talking to everybody, laughing, everybody's having a great time, and all of a sudden, it felt like 2 men, one on this side, one on this side, squeezing my chest. Y'all know where this is going. But I was diagnosed the next morning with a heart attack. I went in with very little time to say anything to anybody. You know, I'm preparing for goodbyes. I don't know what's going on. I'm 40 years old at this point, and I'm being told every light in that hospital's going off, code blues and everything else, and I'm being wheeled into emergency heart surgery. And they pulled a 2 of my left ventricle. Knock on wood, That is the last clot that I've had. It took months of cardiac rehab. Thankfully, there was no damage, no permanent damage done to my heart. And as my cardiologist tells me all the time, he's like, you are just a walking miracle. Because if somebody didn't see the stent that's in my left ventricle, they would not be able to tell that there was any damage done. There is no scarring. There is nothing to tell anyone that I've had a heart attack other than that stent. So I've been lucky in a lot of ways. A lot of ways. But I feel that I've been lucky so that I can give back. You know, I said last night in my video to get everybody kind of ready for tonight. Tonight's just my story, and I wanted everybody to know why I'm so passionate about this and why I talk about this, why I've taken this and just kind of ran with it. Because this has been the past 18 years of my life. I've been sick almost as long as I've been well. And I've made it through all this stuff so I can fight, so I can educate, so I can advocate for those people that were me 18 years ago. Scared, terrified, searching for answers. So yes, I'm a nurse now. I love what I do. I love meeting patients and talking to patients. But the number one thing in my life, you know, as far as aside from my family and friends, the number one thing in my life, the number one driver, the thing that gets me up out of bed every morning is my advocacy work. I'm working on the local, state, and federal level, again, to support means so that Americans can get education, resources, prevention tools, understanding of what this is, so that nobody else has to go through this. Working with the National Blood Clot Alliance has afforded me an outlet in which to do that. And from there, it's sort of just blown up. So like I was saying at the beginning of this video, we've got legislation right now that on April 3rd and April 4th, I will be down in Nashville talking to a state legislator about this being on BY25, budget year 25, and being enacted into law. I mean, we're right there at the finish line. We're right there. So I am super excited for the state of Tennessee. In fact, on a lot of stuff that you see of mine, I have formed the hashtag ClotFreeTennessee. We have amazing healthcare in the state of Tennessee. We have amazing colleges of medicine. We have amazing healthcare resources that a lot of states don't have. It's only natural that we should be one of the pioneers in educating and advocating for one of the nation's #1 killers. Little statistic, another statistic. Every year, if you take breast cancer, motor vehicle accidents, and HIV/AIDS deaths combined, blood clots kill more. This is a national health crisis. And whether someone's had a blood clot or whether they haven't, the more you know could mean saving someone's life, your friend's life, your parents' life, your spouse's life, your child's life. So that's why I'm doing these videos. They're not all going to be me sitting here talking. Believe me, this is just the first one. And I feel like I needed to get this out. I needed to get my story out because there are friends of mine that don't even know all of this. So I work with local legislation. I work with the state of Tennessee's legislation. And I just got back from Capitol Hill Day, where I met with, I can't even count how many senators and House of Representative congressmen and women that are dedicated to this bipartisan, hear that, bipartisan. This doesn't matter about parties. Don't get lost in all that. This is a bipartisan issue that affects all Americans. All Americans. The Senate unanimously passed our bill to make March DVT and PE month. That is now federal. It was amazing. It was so amazing to see that. It was incredible. It was incredible. It was incredible to talk to congressmen and women from my state, set up meetings to talk to them further about what we can do in the state of Tennessee. What can we do on a national level? There's a lot of problems. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just talking about this one. What can we do to lessen the number of American deaths from something that is so preventable? And it starts with education. Education of self, education of healthcare professionals, education of nurses, education, I mean, I could go on and on. But the National Blood Clot Alliance is a wonderful place to pick up resources. Not a sponsor. But that's a wonderful place to pick up resources. You know, and that's why I wanted to start this channel, is so that I could be another resource. So that I could provide my experience, other survivor experience. There are some physicians that are going to be on the show. We're going to be reviewing products. That's going to be a lot of fun. So compression stockings, compression devices, healthcare trackers on all different kinds of watches and smart devices. We're going to be doing all of that kind of stuff. Talking about nutrition, things that you should not eat if you're dealing with blood clots. So I am so excited about the next 10 weeks. I'm super, super excited. So the last segment for tonight is I've got questions and answers that questions for me that some of you have written me, texted me, sent me through DM, but I've got some questions that you guys have sent me, and I want to do a little question and answer session for the last part of this video, and then we'll wrap up for tonight. So, all right. So before I take a couple of your all's questions, which I am so excited to do. These are questions that have been sent to me over the past about 6 months. through text, through Facebook Messenger, on my Facebook, and I really wanted to answer some of them. And I'm going to do this throughout the episodes until hopefully they're all answered. Of course, I don't have all the answers. When in doubt, always seek the advice of your medical professional. They can help you, but that's what I would say. These are just my opinions based on what I have lived. But if you suspect you have a blood clot, a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot to the lungs, if you suspect that anything is going on, always seek medical attention. Always. But okay, so the number one question, I'm reading them from across the room, but is, okay, what is a DVT? A DVT stands for deep vein thrombosis, and that simply means a blood clot. When a blood clot moves from the arm or the leg into your lungs, it's then called a PE, or a pulmonary embolism. And that's when a piece or the whole blood clot has moved into your lungs. When it gets into the lungs, think about it like shaking up a Coke bottle and it just, flies everywhere. That's kind of what happens when a clot gets into your lungs. It just kind of breaks up and goes everywhere. So it does a lot of damage to the pulmonary tissue. Lung function, breathing can be affected. A lot of times these are misdiagnosed as panic attacks. They're misdiagnosed as asthma. But again, with everything, advocate. You are your biggest advocate. If something doesn't feel right, keep pushing until you get the right answer. Because as far as medical science has come, as wonderful as, and I work with doctors every day, as wonderful as doctors are and selfless and amazing, sometimes we miss stuff. Sometimes as nurses, we miss stuff. So if something doesn't feel right, keep pushing until you get an answer. But that's what a DVT is. It's a deep vein thrombosis, or just a fancy term for blood clot. That's what it is. All right, number 2. How did I feel with each one of my blood clots? They all felt pretty similar, except for the heart attack, the clot-induced heart attack. So some of the signs and symptoms, and again, I'm going to post the link in the description to the National Blood Clot Alliance website that will give you some diagrams, some drawings, some anagrams of, what to look for, stop clot. But how I personally felt is I personally felt like the first sign and symptom when I know I have a clot is I get pain in my back. Weird. It's not in my back. It's in my leg. But my pain presents in my back. I don't know why. But I know when I feel that feeling, that's what this is. Thank the Lord and medical science that when my medication was switched up after my heart attack, I have not had another event. Does that mean I won't have another event? I don't know. I hope not, but I don't know. So with me, I had pain in my back. My leg, especially the leg that had the clot, because I've had clots in both legs now, right and left. The leg that had the clot in it felt extremely heavy. Like I described earlier, like I was dragging it behind me. You know, like I had a cinder block tied to it. It swells. And I'm not just talking about a little bit of swelling. It swells noticeably. It is hot to the touch. And it is also discolored. Sometimes a special area will become red. Sometimes the whole foot or leg will become red. And then mine eventually, if gone on, of course, now I know what I'm dealing with. But that first one, when I had no idea, it turned purple. So it got to that point. So those are some of my signs and symptoms. With my heart attack, when the clot was in my left ventricle, I started getting squeezing, chest pressure, and pain. It was a horrible pain. I had vomiting. I had back pain. I just felt like pain all over the left side of my body. Not just in my chest. The pain in my chest was horrible. And just nowhere you turn, nowhere you go, nothing alleviates it. The only thing that gave me relief is that I had the peace of mind to take an extra dose of blood thinner and then take some aspirin. And I think that potentially saved my life, because that is the only relief that I got during that heart attack until I got to the hospital. So that gave me a little bit, but you know, they're very painful. But a lot of times we will chalk it up because we're tough, or, you know, being a former athlete, or a lot of people are diagnosed when they're very young, and they chalk it up to a muscle cramp or a chest cold or, you know, a Charlie horse. You hear that a lot. But if it doesn't feel right, just go. Get it checked out. It could be nothing. And I hope it's nothing. But it could be everything. The earlier that you detect these things, the better your chance of survival is. So I don't say all of this to scare you and say run to the ER every time that you've got an ache or pain. But, you know, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it might be a duck. So when in doubt, just go and have them check it out. So, okay, next question. Can I still do the things that I used to do? That's a great question. Yes and no. Right after my son was born, about a year after he was born, I had to have surgery. So after him, I could have no more children. So that's something that I can't do anymore. But I'm blessed because, you know, I have a wonderful son. I can still shoot basketball. You know, I can do a few things like that. But as far as like contact, you know, getting hit in the nose, getting hit in the mouth, you know, breaking something, tearing my knee, it puts a whole extra level of difficulty in getting treated if I was to get hurt. A nosebleed is not going to stop because I'm on blood thinner. If I tear my knee up or something like that, surgery is, especially on your lower extremities to somebody with blood clots, is, oh, it's just, you avoid it at all costs. All right, a couple more questions. I love this. I love this part. Is my advocacy a hobby? in a very quick answer, no. No, my advocacy is not, and what the word advocacy means is that I am advocating with newspapers. I am advocating with media. I am advocating with local politicians. I am advocating with the state of Tennessee, state of Georgia. I am also advocating at the federal level with congressmen, congresswomen, and so many of them have been amazing, amazing and receptive and helpful. Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger, Congressman Chuck Fleischman, Congressman Andy Ogles. The three of them stick out in my mind. State legislator Carrie Kiesling. These are just some of the people amongst many, many, many that have been so helpful and so instrumental in helping me as an advocate for the state of Tennessee. They have been incredible to work with and speak with and receptive and helpful. Again, this is a bipartisan issue. So I don't even want to get into the political, this is good, this is bad. I don't care. This is a bipartisan issue for which Americans need help. And wherever that help comes from, that's the goal. So no, my advocacy is not a hobby. My advocacy after my family and my friends is, and of course my faith is right up there, number one. You know, I am so passionate about getting people medications that they can afford, not having to wait on approvals for days or weeks or months for medication that could save their lives. So someone who can afford a medication can be well, and someone who can't has to wait. I'm not okay with that. We are all entitled to the best medical intervention that we have. That's how I truly feel. And I truly feel that we also need to be monitoring blood clots. And there are other diseases and other disorders, and thank goodness that they have gotten the spotlight that they have, because it has turned some of those diagnoses around. It has turned the fatality rates around. But what blood clot ambassadors, what we are asking for is a drop in the bucket for some of these other diseases and disorders have gotten. Yet blood clots kill more than them, most of them combined. Tell me why. So I think it's great anytime that a disease or a disorder starts getting the spotlight, starts getting funding, starts getting attention. That's great, because those victims and those survivors are just as passionate as I am about this. And there's a lot of diseases and there's a lot of disorders. So you can see some of the problem there of different groups fighting for funding. But one of the things that we were fighting for on Capitol Hill is an appropriation for $5 million that will go directly to the Centers of Disease Control in Atlanta for blood research. We need it badly. For public service announcements. Right now, the National Blood Clot Alliance, until 4/15, April 15th, has a billboard up in Times Square. If any of you live in that area, I'd love to see a picture of it, a live picture of it. If you would send that to me in the comments, I would love to see it. I've seen pictures from some of my fellow ambassadors, but I would love to see it. So no, my advocacy is not a hobby. My advocacy is now my life. And it has allowed me to be able to help some other groups and some other people that have nothing to do with blood clots. And that has been extremely special for me, to be able to throw out the lifeline to someone else that is going through something, and be able to offer resources to them that could help them in their cause, to point them in the right direction, because I've already gone down that road. So no, my advocacy is my life right now, you know, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Because blood clots were here 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and they're going to be here for a long time. So we've got quite a road ahead of us to fight. All right. When did I decide that I wanted to go from a survivor, when did I decide that I wanted to go from a patient to a survivor to an advocate? As you've heard in my story, it's been a progression. It's taken a long time to get me to this place. When you are actively sick, you're not thinking about tomorrow. You're only thinking about today. So once I was able to get the clotting under control and get my disorder somewhat stable, at that point, then I could, of course, focus on something else but fighting, you know, my health. I say this all the time, and I truly mean this, and there are those of us that are no longer around to fight. And if blood clots take me in a week, a month, a year, a decade, when I'm 100, then I've put up a fight. I fought every day. There's no shame in that. And advocacy is not for everyone. Speaking out is not for everyone. That's okay too. Just being okay with who you are is what's the most important. You know, that is important. Your self-care, your self-love, that is important. Your healing, that's important. But I love this quote, and I don't know if I came up with it or if I heard it from somebody else. I don't know. But it says that no matter what you are going through in this world, no matter what, you can be a victim of your circumstance. You can be a victim to a lot of things. You can be a victim to a diagnosis. You can be a victim to a disorder. You can be a victim to almost anything. Or you can dig deep, and given the necessary tools, you can make your circumstance, your disorder, your disease, a victim of you. And that's what I have done, is that I may die of a blood clot in 5 years. But while I was on earth, it was my victim. I'm doing more damage to blood clots as a whole, as it ever did to me. So that's how I feel about that one. Okay, just a couple more questions. I'm gonna take just one or two more. All right. What can I do to help with blood clots? I don't have one, but what? Okay, that's a great question. So somebody wrote in and said, I don't have blood clots, but what can I do to help? Again, I will put the link to the National Blood Clot Alliance down in the description, www.stoptheclot.org. You can donate monetarily. You can write your congressmen, your representatives, your senators, and say, hey, I don't fight with this. I don't suffer from this, but something needs to be done about blood clots. The more they hear it, the more they will respond. You can reach out to me at any time. Email me. I'll put my email down in the description as well. You can message me here on YouTube, message me on Facebook, leave a comment. I'm not hard to find. And just say, Lisa, I want to get involved. And reach out to your media. Reach out to your newspapers. Reach out to your local television stations. And say, hey, you know, I saw this girl talking about blood clots. And, you know, I think more people need to know about this. I'd be happy to talk to you or talk to them anytime. That's another way. Also, we have sponsored events throughout the year. Right now, we're having the 100,000 challenge, which stands for the 100,000 people that we will lose this year. I've put links of that up on my Facebook page, that you can, through any type of fitness activity, raise funds for DVT research, DVT education, DVT tools. That's another way. There are all kinds of ways to get involved. If you know of a health fair that's going to be in your town, or some kind of, you know, health event, health summit, let me know about it. I'll show up. I'll show up with all my blood clot swag and show up, because it's about getting more people to know about this. The more people that know, if this happens to them, if they experience these signs and symptoms, the more apt they are to seek treatment. That's the goal. If I can help save one life, one, everything that I have been through, all 18 clots, pain, surgery, all of it is worth it. If I can help one person, that's it. That's the goal. That's the end game. So, okay, last one. What would I like to see happen in the next, I love that. What would I like to see happen in the next 12 months concerning blood clots? I've got a wish list. It's like I'm ready for that one. I love that. Oh my gosh. Okay, so within the next 12 months, I would like to see my piece of legislation enacted into law, or as a bill. And we are this close. I go in April, so I'm so excited about that. I would like our appropriation to pass in BY25, that the National Blood Clot Alliance introduced for funding. I would like to continue my advocacy work on a much bigger scale. YouTube is part of that. And I want to hear from you all. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your stories. I want as many people possible on this channel telling their stories. You know, that's what I want. So that's what I would like to see within the next 12 months concerning blood clots is that we spread awareness. We educate. It's like revolving cats behind me. I know, it's so annoying. But that's what I would like to see. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for your time tonight. Next week, I'm very excited. We're going to have a physician on with me. We're going to be asking him questions and learning all kinds of things from him. I'm very, very excited to have him on with me. And so I will see you soon. Please follow the link and subscribe. That is what will get this channel noticed. So if you can do anything for me, it's follow and subscribe. Hit that bell and subscribe. So I love you guys so much. I will see you next Sunday. Mwah. Good night.